Welcome, everyone. My guest today is Lead Analyst Logan Mohtashami to talk about existing home sales and what housing demand today is showing us about the spring home buying season. As always, I want to thank our sponsor, Optimal Blue, for making this episode possible. Logan, welcome back to the podcast.
It is wonderful to be here, Sarah. And, just this morning, HousingWire celebrated your 11th year at the company. And it has been so much fun the last 5 years working with you. We had to show that picture of Clayton holding my hand up when I won the mortgage rate lockdown debate. And I just have so many great memories over the past few years.
Okay, we didn't have to show that picture. You showed that picture. We did not have to do that. But yes, I've really enjoyed 11 years working at HousingWire, 5 years, coming up on 5 years editing your stuff, and 3 years when we've been doing this podcast. So lots of great milestones.
You're doing the Lord's work as you're doing the Lord's work,
yes.
like that gentleman said, dealing with me.
I often get that when I meet people. They're like, "Oh, you do a good job with Logan, keeping him in line." So I was like, "Okay, it's my job. Someone's got to do it." No, it's great. Okay, let's talk about existing home sales.
Yeah, so interesting in existing home sales. I don't know if some people were like prepped for a beat on that, but I encourage everyone. I wrote an article about that report and went and talked about it on Yahoo Finance as well. But our tracker data really started to pick this up months before the report kind of had. And this is why we highlight our tracker data. But the key thing, and the one thing that I'll remember so much about 2024 is that even in a seasonal soft period, mortgage rates just getting down towards 6% changed the pricing curve in our data lines in the month of October, which we made that chart available for the public. And you could all see why I was like, oh my God, I think I'm going to be wrong with my home price forecast this year. I might be too low. It's because of things like that. And that's why we say in a world of data being so available to everyone, anyone can be prolific into tracking stuff now. You don't have to be a rocket scientist or a data analyst or economist or anything. All the information is there. It's just you have to be willing to read it. And we saw a beat in estimates, again, year over year growth, because we're working from the mother of all low bars, I say. But is this really the end? Is this, has existing home sales really bottomed out for growth in 2025?
I think one of the really interesting things that you do with the tracker articles, and then, you brought that into your existing home sales report when it came out on Thursday, is that you look at like how we see the forward-looking demand data, which is purchase applications, and how that factors into things like, inventory and then also home prices. Because I think all those things go together, but not everybody puts them together.
Yes. Like we've always said, purchase application data, most people can't read it correctly. And we were highlighting this when we had 18 weeks of a positive trend with the data lines, and everybody is so enamored with the volumes being low that they couldn't recognize that the supply and demand equilibrium, which is what people really care about, was changing right in front of their eyes. And nobody cared, right? And then what our tracker article is we show the forward-looking data, right? Just like what happened in November 9th, 2022, we had another version of this in the mid part of 2024. Mortgage rates heading towards 6% actually created 12 weeks of a positive demand curve. Purchase apps look out 30 to 90 days before they hit the sales. Then we see it in the pending contracts data, and then the pricing data firmed up. Now, if you don't read the tracker, you have no idea what we're talking about. But here it is in October, we see some of this stuff. And now the report that just came out for that month, a lot of the data line makes sense. And that's what it is. It's just a faster way to look at current and forward rather than looking backwards. And I think that's the benefit of having myself and Mike work together on this, because we look at housing differently, but he's got the inventory data and I've got the economic stuff. And we merge them together, you could kind of connect the dots, because to me, you can't just be a housing person. You have to be an economic cycle person too, because a 10-year yield is so key to everything. Not shocking to us, but I think for a few people were shocked about that report.
So let's take a step back and look at the housing market as a whole, right? You've written up the new home sales report, the existing home sales report. We were really hoping that we would see some, a better fall than maybe, we've done that the last couple years, where because rates fell in the fall, then we saw a boost in demand, which led into a really nice. It was a nice season there for about 8 weeks or 10 weeks on each side, but we haven't seen that this time yet, this fall, correct?
Well, we haven't seen mortgage rates fall, but I would say that our pending contracts data is noticeably better still from 2022 to 2023. So that is exciting in that self, that even with rates just ranging between 6 to 7, that we could still hold this to show some growth. Now, we wrote that article, I think it was March 21st, about, okay, this is it. The existing home sales peaked. I think it was 4.38 million. That was a monthly print. And then that's because the 10-year yield had been going up, and that's pretty much kills the forward-looking demand. We saw about, if we take that 20-week period, we had 14 negative purchase application data prints when mortgage rates were rising higher. We only had 2 positive prints, a few flat prints. And then you see that same similar action like we saw in 2023, a big push in early demand and then a slow moving down. We don't have these crashes anymore, right? Purchase application volume isn't crashing anymore. It's just hovering. So at some point, you build a deeper base. And I know a lot of people have this theory that mortgage rates have to go back down to 3% to grow sales or grow prices. That was completely debunked
Right.
this year, in terms of we can get sales to grow. We just need lower rates, just down toward the 6% level with duration. We have more inventory, more active listings now. We just don't have the mortgage demand growth to really kick it up and stay it up. And that's the thing. That's why 2025 is so much more exciting, because we are in a rate cut cycle. Okay. And we have the 10-year yield just not being so volatile in terms of heading back up to 8%. The spreads are better, right? These are all things that are happening now that if wasn't happening in 2023, right? If we had the worst levels of the mortgage spreads, we're almost 75 basis points higher in mortgage rates. So there are some more positive factors going in, and you just need 6. I know there's all these surveys that say 5.5% is the magic number. I'm not, Sarah, you know how much I don't like pent-up demand and sideline home buyers. Ask me what I really think about
Right.
surveys. Surveys are just
Oh, I know what you think
trash,
about surveys.
So we actually just want to look at what does the data tell us? And the data has now told us at the end of 2022 and early 2023, in the mid part of 2024, mortgage rates just heading towards 6% because sale levels are so depressed. This is why I always stress it's the 3rd calendar year of the lowest home sales ever. It doesn't take much to move the needle. And, we're going to go into a little bit more in depth with my 2025 forecast at the end of the year, which is it's a little bit different how I look at it than other economists. But I've calculated about 373,000 to 621,000 home sales can grow, depending on how low and long the 10-year yield can get down to about 380 to 425 with better spreads. Okay, so that's a working live model that we'll see what happens in 2025. So we can do this. But again, everything revolves around the 10-year yield. Why, Sarah? What is it about the 10-year yield and mortgage rates? The
Yeah, they've
slow
been in the
dance,
slow
right?
dance, right?
It is a slow dance. And then with better spreads, the positive story of 2024, it's a much better case for that to happen, especially now that, everyone could see housing starts are at recession levels, permits are at recession levels, the units are being completed. We're not that far off from getting those projects all done. And then we're like, okay, now what? In that case, that's a labor trigger for the economic cycle that I'm very mindful of. It's been a big baseline of my recession model work. It's one of the reasons why we said the housing and economic dynamics shifted after November 9th, 2022. So there are things in the tea leaves that could get us there, which, we're still a little bit suspect in 2024 because we actually got right to the Hodor line December, like at the end of December of 2023. I'm like, my God, we're already here. I'm like, this is like a repeat of Gandalf, but it's still 2023. So
So this is the crazy thing. So when you look ahead to 2025, when we look at the mortgage rate environment for 2025, and I ask you this all the time, but at what point are we still in the cycle, or in the part of the cycle where whatever the Fed does has already been baked into the current mortgage rates?
And Sarah Wheeler, I'm going to give you the same answer I always give you too. And the market has already priced in a lot of Fed rate cuts.
But
This
when
is
is that
why
going to change?
it's already Sarah, it's already done. It's the economic data that matters. Okay, so when the 10-year yield gets down to 380, that's a lot of easing, and I think this is where I think it's difficult because so many people were told for the last 2 years that the economy's terrible, mortgage rates have to go down sub 5%. Until you see the frontline labor data breaking, no. I mean, that's just not the case. So this is why I always say people don't understand how restrictive policy is for housing by the Federal Reserve by choice. This is by choice. So in this context, it's really now here's one benefit that I think people can latch onto: the City Economic Surprise Index, which I say if you follow the City Economic Surprise and the 10-year yield, they kind of move hand in hand. It looks like it's peaking, right? And the 10-year yield has still kept that downtrend from 5%. It looks like it's peaking. If you can get that next move lower, we could get lower rates hopefully soon going into spring. And if it just kicks down a little bit towards 6% positive, what Fed rate cuts can do is make the spreads better, which they have. And that could be a benefit. But again, to just think of that 380 is kind of like a real line in the sand. To really go below that, the economic data needs to get weaker and weaker, and it just didn't. The City Surprise Index, actually, the timing of it was very crazy because it was right when the Fed cut 50 basis points, so it looks odd, but that's it. We follow economic data because now everybody believes the Fed is going to go to neutral, and what is neutral is still up in the air because they keep on debating about it, but it's a process. It's a process, but I encourage everyone, we had a near 2% lower move in mortgage rates with zero Fed rate cuts. How did that happen?
Right.
Flows with economic data, right?
As you always say, the bond market got ahead of the Fed, and it was really looking at the economic data. So I think this week we had the leading economic indicators, correct? That was reported this week. What did that show?
The leading economic index, which if you look at it, it absolutely failed tremendously this cycle. And
What does that
the
mean?
conference board, we made a presentation to the conference board in 2022. They asked us to bring our recession
Okay,
model, and
we did not do anything. You made a
okay, you
presentation
have
to
to
the
realize,
conference board.
Sarah Wheeler, we are a team. We are a
I'm
team.
not a
There is
team
no
in front
I
of the
in
conference
there is
board.
no I in Logan. There actually isn't an I in Logan. Okay, but in this case, I'm always going to say we. You're going to have to learn to adjust to this. Okay, we are a team. You're talking to an ex-high school basketball coach. Okay, so team. Okay, as I was saying, the leading economic index, the conference board, they're the ones who created the IMF, the World Bank, Ethan Hunt, Mission Impossible. Their job is to basically give their information to the Federal Reserve, the White House, and everybody. So their index has been flawless in the past. When it falls 4 to 6% after certain data lines get weaker, it's a recession every time. It didn't work this time. Why didn't it work, Sarah Wheeler? November 9th, 2022. The abnormality of this housing cycle has been more different than anything we've seen in the last 6 decades. And after November 9th, it basically nullified the conference board index, right? We always say that we only go into the trigger, right, recession words when jobless claims are running to 323,000, 4-week moving average, and residential construction workers lose their jobs. Then manufacturing usually gets hit. That never happened yet. So This is why the conference board failed. I actually just did a video on this on Instagram. By the way, I love the Instagram nerdy family. All of you are asking such good questions. It gives me hope that people are actually reading and looking at charts and going, okay, I'm learning something.
No, we hear that a lot. We get a lot of feedback that people are very happy with what they are learning and then what they can help their consumers and their customers and their clients with, with all the questions that they're getting from, from consumers who are like, what is going on?
Yes, and this is why we're already booked more for the 2025 Noor Tour before Thanksgiving than everything in 2024. And by the way, I am traveling to cold weather, and let me tell you something. Living in Southern California, I freeze myself off going to the freezer section at Albertsons. So any helping traveling things for cold weather, let me know because we're going to Utah, Boise twice. Illinois, there's going to be a lot of cold weather. Denver, so I'll see if I can make it. I don't deal well with the cold. A funny story is when I went to Japan in 2018, I had one of these crazy sweaters that I wore, and literally people thought I was Jon Snow from Game of Thrones. I mean, literally people
So,
would come and
do
take selfies
you
and go,
look like
Jon
Jon
Snow, Jon
Snow from Game
Snow.
of Thrones?
I was like, I don't look like him. That guy's like 5'5". First of all, no, I think it was just the jacket, but yeah, I've got a. I think I showed you that selfie. Like the entire school like came behind me and were like, Jon Snow. I was like, no.
That is hilarious. Okay, well, we cannot talk about the Nerd Tour and not talk about the Housing Economics Summit. It is February 26th. It is here in Dallas. You are a headliner. You, Mike, Barry, Habib. We've got all sorts of. We've got. I don't even know who I'm allowed to say, but we have like 10 of the best
So
economists.
I know you're not allowed to say probably, but if it is the truth, then Barry Habib and myself, it'll be the first time ever that him and I are actually at an event that we're all speaking on one day, and we have a lot of economists coming to that event now. And
We
we're already
do.
get people from other states even. You got something good when people from other states are coming to a one-day summit. I don't know how you could get all that talent into one conference for a one-day event, and especially it'll be coming right at the end of February to right before the spring season. And you know us, we always say January, February are very key data lines for spring. So the timing is perfect and the talent pool is good because usually you get these conferences, you get one economist and then a bunch of other people. Here you got a bunch of talented people coming in. So that's going to be the economic event early on. I can't wait.
I know, and we've broken it out so that each economist is going to talk about the thing that they're really known for, the part of the economy. So it's not going to be overlap, right? You've got mortgage rates. Mike Simonson has inventory. We have assigned people are talking about the things that they're experts on. So okay, people sign up for that, don't miss it. Okay, I have to, before we go here, Logan, I have to ask you, or at least talk about the fact that in our last podcast we talked about the Treasury Secretary, what Trump's pick could mean, and you talked about specifically Warsh. Is that how you say his name, Warsh? It sounds like the way
It's
the people I know
interesting.
from Missouri say wash, but it's
Yeah,
not, it's Warsh.
it's you're asking somebody who says everyone's name wrong, so you should probably listen to other people. But
It's true,
um,
what am I thinking?
it's the funny thing was all of a sudden my phone blew up and they were like, you have an in with the Fed, you know what's going on. I was like, what are you talking about, what's happening? So the Wall Street Journal broke out a story last night, so we're talking on Friday morning, that Kevin Warsh is now being looked at as the Treasury Secretary up until Powell resigns, and then he'll be the Fed chair. Now, the critique of Kevin Warsh is that he almost sounds like an anti-central bank Fed hater, who's somebody who worked there at the Federal Reserve. All he does is make fun of the Fed for 12 years. I mean, literally, Sarah, would you like somebody coming working for you if they badmouth you for 12 years? So
No.
it's a controversial pick in that sense, and some of the things that he has said might not align with President Trump's big business plan. But I look at it this way: Trump basically has a game plan, And just like the last time he took the presidency, he needed things in place before he went all in. So think of it. This is my Machiavellian side working here. He tells Warsh, hey, listen, you be the head of the Treasury, make sure yields don't fall, get ready. And then when you are the president or the Fed chairman, you make sure to have yield curve controls, keep the 10-year yield low, push rates down, get the dollar weaker. The dollar's getting strong. I was just like showing everyone charts today. The dollar's getting strong again. That's not what President Trump wants. So last time it took him 2 years before he went into the trade war tap dance. This one is, if you think of it in a crazy sense, here, have this job for 2 years, then we'll get rid of Powell, and then you take the job. That's a setup for maybe a 4-year outlook. But it was proposed to him as the plan B Treasury Secretary for 2 years, then take Powell's job. We'll see if that happens. We'll see if he even wants to do that. But I think there's a reason why we haven't had a Treasury pick yet. I think I always go back to Steven Mnuchin's. Steven Mnuchin would be great. I wish he would take the job. I think everyone would be happy. But in this context, when Mnuchin said we would like a cap at 450, if he's saying that to the public, my God, what do you think they're talking about indoors? Right? Everybody
Sure.
is in on this game plan, because the last thing President Trump needs is the 10-year yield breaking out, and then you have to deal with housing construction and all this stuff, and not how you want to start off. The job growth is slowing down, right? Especially if you take government workers out of it, the private sector is slowing down. So there are things where you can't necessarily throw shocks into the economy.
No, I so appreciate that. Of course, we are recording on Friday. We will see what happens over the weekend. But Logan, thank you so much for being on, as always. And we will be on the week of Thanksgiving a couple of times. So thanks, as always, for giving us your insights.
Pleasure as always, Sarah.